the beautiful thing is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He refers to being good to the parents, the terminology that is used, both in the Qur'an and the Sunnah, the Hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, which refers to being kind, being good to our parents, the word birrul walidain, the same word bir is used, which is in another place in the Qur'an refers to the highest level of piety. The highest level of piety. That same term is used for being kind, being good, respecting, honoring our parents. Birrul walidain, bir. Now what does bir mean? So bir in the Qur'an, in the Arabic language, it's got a very interesting root. I'll talk about that in just a little bit. In the Qur'an, the usage of the term bir is higher than taqwa. It is like a combination of taqwa and iman and sabr and shukr. When you combine all these good qualities together, the epitome of it, the collection of it, all right, is that the apex of all of this is that it manifests in the condition of what is called bir. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses that word bir in Surah Al-Baqarah to describe that perfection of deen and religion. وَلَكِنَّ الْبِرَّ مَنْ آمَنَ بِاللَّهِ وَالْيَوْمِ. And when you read on that ayah, it covers all the different facets and aspects of life and action and amal. So that's what the word bir refers to. All right, so bir is the highest level of piety. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whenever He mentions being good to the parents, right after mentioning what? His right upon us, and then He mentions the parents' right upon us. وَقَضَى رَبُّكَ لَا تَعْبُدُوا إِلَّا إِيَّاهُ. Your Lord has decreed that you worship no one other than Him. وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. And then you be good to your parents. Allah's right, and then the parents' right. Mention one right after another. Even in the universal values, وَإِذَا أَخَذْنَا مِيثَاقَ بَنِي إِسْرَائِيلَ لَا تَعْبُدُونَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ. Allah even took a covenant and an oath from Bani Israel that you will worship no one other than Allah. وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. And you will be good to your parents. So the rights of the parents are mentioned right after the right of Allah, to show the importance of it and the necessity of it. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives it that honor and distinction by mentioning it right after He mentions His right upon us. And not only that, but what we're now learning is that Allah uses the same word to describe being good to the parents, being dutiful to the parents. The same word that He uses to describe the highest level of piety and closeness to Allah, and that is the word bir. That is the word bir. All right, and that we can take so many lessons from that. Number one, we see the importance of it. So after realizing the right of God upon us, it is then incumbent upon us that we realize the right of our parents upon us, the rights of our parents upon us. Number two, if you truly, and I'm pretty sure no Muslim, no believer, regardless of what level of faith that believer is at, no believer would ever say, I don't care about Allah's right upon me. I don't care what God has told me to do. Well, if at the least you have some problem, some issue with your parents, but you say, no, I got no problem with Allah. Well, who told you to be good to your parents? Allah. And He uses again that same term to describe it, that this is part of that piety, that you will not reach that level of piety unless and until you have realized your duties and your responsibilities to your parents. Unless and until you can be good to your parents, you will never realize that highest level of piety, which is al-bir. Al-bir. So this is what this describes. Secondly, and the last note I'll tell you here about this connection between the right of Allah and the right of the parents, and this is, I think, a little bit more of a message to the parents. And I'd like to point this out for parents. And that is, what will teach your child to respect your rights is when you teach your child to respect Allah. Because look, we're all human beings. We're all human beings. A child should respect the parent regardless. But we're all human beings. As a parent, nobody can sit there and claim that I'm perfect. I'm the perfect father. I'm the perfect mother. Nobody can claim that. All right? So you are going to slip up, you are going to mess up, you will have faults and shortcomings. When those faults and shortcomings happen, when you do mess up, the thing that will still make your child respect you, is that you instilled within your child the respect for Allah and Allah's command. Then even though you slipped up, you messed up, as is human nature. You slipped up, you messed up, and you did something horrible to your child. You did something horrible to your child. Even at that time, that child will pick up and read the book of Allah and will say, وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. And that child will say, I still got to be good to my parents. I still got to be good to my parents. And so that's very important, that connection, through just simply the word bir. The Prophet ﷺ said, خَيْرُكُمْ أَحْسَنُكُمْ لِأَهْلِهِ. The best amongst you is the one who's the best to his family. وَأَنَا أَحْسَنُكُمْ لِأَهْلِي. And I'm the best out of all of you when it comes to dealing with my family. So family relations is very, very important. It is a key component. It is part and parcel of spirituality in general. And the most important in those family relations are the parents. And again, what an unbelievable contradiction that that's usually where we fault the most, where we falter the most, is in our relationship with our parents. That's the most important. It's in fact the Prophet ﷺ told us, a sign of Day of Judgment. People will be great with their friends, but not so great with their dads. Like him, he doesn't know what he's talking about, old man. Or when they, and sometimes I don't want to go into the whole rant and tangent. I did plenty of that yesterday, all right? But even in terms of like very, very, they package it in innocuous forms. In modern day entertainment, they package it in very, very unassuming, innocuous forms, like cartoons. When Bart Simpson talks about his dad, how does he refer to him? Does he say my dad, my father? What does he say? Homer. Calls him by his first name. He even speaks to him with his first name, Homer. Subhanallah. But it's not some horrible dude, right, who's like drinking alcohol and he's got drugs in one hand and a beer in the other hand and he's got tattoos and he's got earrings. And they don't present it like that. It's a cute little cartoon character who rides a skateboard, right? And then he refers to his father as Homer. So we have to be very, very careful. And this is a bit of nasiha. It's often quoted as a hadith. It's not authenticated as a hadith, but this is mentioned as a nasiha that the scholars would give. And they would say, Burru aba'akum taburrukum abna'ukum. Burru aba'akum taburrukum abna'ukum. Be good to your parents and your children will be good to you. Be good to your parents and your children will be good to you. And that's the biggest test of that is when they're old. Again, let's just say it like it is. It's not a very pretty truth. It's an ugly truth. But older parents are easier to take advantage of. Older parents are easier to neglect. Older parents are easier to abuse. They're old. Shh, quiet. Leave me alone, I'm busy right now. Very easy. Because that's what happens when you start maturing and you become the responsible one, the man of the household, then it becomes very easy to boss your parents around. Then they're just a burden. Such a burden. They're such a problem. They're such a headache. And he goes on to say, وَعْلَمُوا أَنَّ سَخْطَ اللَّهِ فِي سَخْطِ الْوَالِدَيْنِ. That the anger and the wrath of Allah is embedded in the anger and the wrath of the parents. When your parents are displeased with you, Allah is displeased with you. وَأَنَّ رَضَاهُ لَا يَكُونُ إِلَّا إِذَا رَضَى عَنْكُمُ الْوَالِدَانِ. And realize this, that the pleasure of Allah, you will never attain it unless and until your parents are pleased with you. وَلَا شَيْءٌ يَزِيدُ فِي الْعُمْرِ وَيُبَارِكُ فِي الرِّزْقِ مِثْلَ بِرِّ الْوَالِدَيْنِ وَصِلَةَ الْأَرْحَامِ. And realize this, that there's nothing that puts more barakah and blessing into the life and into the sustenance of a person as much as being good to the parents and joining family relations. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us all the ability to practice everything that was said and heard. Subhanallahi wa bihamdihi, subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik, nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. It's time for the salah very close, so we'll talk about the vocabulary words tomorrow in class inshallah. Jazakumullah khairan.